Going to have a look at Docker Compose. So when I first started learning Docker, I was definitely a bit confused about when to use Docker Compose and when to just use a Docker file. So I think if you are totally new to Docker, you should start looking at Docker files. If you already know how that works, we can take a look at Docker Compose together in this video. So let's actually have a look at their own website. So I'm at Docker, Docker Docs, and I'm in the section where they present Docker Compose, and they, as you can see here, describe it as a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications. So if you're just interested in running a single container, a Docker file is enough. If you have multiple containers that maybe need to work together, you'll have to know how to use the Docker Compose. So for this tutorial, I've made a very small application that has both a front end and a back end. In reality, when I work on small projects, I usually need both a front end and a back end. And whenever I sit down at the computer in the morning, it can be pretty long to just get the solution up and running and start developing. So if I were to actually do this, I would go into my front end. This is a Vue.js front end, by the way. I would have to start up the application. So let's see, it's running on port 8080. So here's my application. This is a vegetable dictionary that will just give me a list of vegetables, but we get an error immediately. It says error fetching vegetables, the server might be down, and that's true. I haven't started up the server yet. So to actually start working on this project, I would need to go, I'll just split my terminal here. I will jump into my desktop, then into backend. This is a Node.js backend, so I would run it by saying node app.js, and now it's running on port 3000. So if I go and refresh the page, I can actually talk to the backend. So with Docker Compose, and if of course these applications are already in a Docker image, I can, let me just shut it down. I can, with a single command, spin up both of these applications inside of two Docker containers. So for the purpose of the tutorial, I've already made a Docker file for each of these. We could just have a look at it here by going to the front end first. So for the front end, I just use a Nginx, a web server image, and then I copy over whatever I have in my dist folder. So that's after running npm run build, which is a build command in Vue.js. And then I simply copy it into this path. This is not something I have made up. I have actually went, let me just show you, to the Docker Hub, searched Nginx, and if just running Docker from with the Docker run command, it'll tell you to copy over your files to this path. So this is what I've used. Oh, actually you can see it down here. There's a Docker file. They say copy your static HTML into this path. So that's what I've done. All right. So we can go ahead and Docker build. We can tag it front end, let's say Vue front end. While it's loading, let's go over here to the backend and see that we have done a similar thing where we have a Docker file. Here we we start from a base node image. We make a directory called app where our application is going to live. Then we install the dependencies by copying over the package JSON, running npm install. Then we take the source code, which is just a single file, and we copy it over to the /app. And then we run the node command on the app.js, so our server will actually start running. All right, let's build this as well. We will call it node backend. Cool. So each of these images can now run. If I go and say Docker run, I need to specify which port will be available. So I'll say, no, this wasn't 3000, this was 8080 on the outside, 8080 on the inside of the container, and view front end. This should work. It doesn't say anything, but I actually think it's running. So I can confirm this by opening up the browser, going to localhost 8080. Nothing's happening. What's wrong? Oh wait, that's right. If I refer back to the Nginx document, it should somewhere tell me here how to expose an external port. So Nginx serves its content on port 80, so I need to map that instead. Let's go back here, say 80. Let's try again. So we get the front end running, but no back end. Then I can go over here, Docker run, and this specified to 3000. Let's just keep it like that. And then say node backend. Now it's running on 3000. And if I refresh, I get my response from the backend. Okay, so this is what I want to avoid. I don't, every time I have to spin up the application, I don't want to manually go in and type these commands. Have two terminals running, it's all a mess. So what I can do is close this down. I'm gonna head back out to the root where I have both the front end and back end, and I'm gonna create a new file. It's called dockercompose.yml. That's a standard. So there's a command called docker compose up, which will start the whole process, and that is by default looking for a file of this name. So let's go in here and we'll start editing. What we need to do in the beginning is specify the version of Docker Compose that we're working on. Latest one is 3.7, so let's stick with that. Next thing is I'll give it a list of services. We have the front end and we have the back end. So inside of the front end, we need to specify an image. The image was called view front end. And for the back end, it was called node backend. So this basically works a lot like the docker run command. I can specify most of the same things, so I can give it the ports in this format. So I'll say I want to connect to it in port 8080, and I want to expose the internal port 80, which Nginx is running on. So for the backend, I need to say 3000. All right. And then if I head back out to the terminal and run docker compose up, it should run both of these images at the same time. So this is a very simple example just to get you up and running with Docker Compose, kind of get the idea of what it's doing for you. So if I hit enter, something wrong. Port is already allocated, so I'll just go to Docker PS to list out all of the Docker images running. And I see that indeed I have still the old images running. So I just need to remove those or shut them down. I can do that with Docker kill. Then the name, Docker kill, Docker compose 1. There we go. So if I once again type Docker PS, I have nothing running. And we can run our Docker compose up. There we go. So let's try and just shut this down. Go to localhost 8080, and we get our website plus the response from the server. So it's all working with one single command. So if we look at the output of the terminal, this is something I think is really cool, that in the same terminal you actually get the output of both of the Docker images. So we'll have the name here, the backend is outputting app is running on port 3000, and the front end is outputting every single request that I make. All right, that's it.